Hey, so we just got cut off with Kat, and we'll be right back in a moment. We're back right now. So my phone overheated. This is what happens. It's a very hot day here, and online here for if you watch this later.
Hi.
Hey, sorry about that.
No, don't be sorry. I was worried it was me because I'm having one of those days where everything's. But
I'm
you know
glad that it's both of us having those days.
what? We just have to embrace it. Some days are just like that, you know. Just have to own it.
Exactly. It's just, that's the fun thing I think about doing these lives is that you never quite know what's going to happen. Hey, Lucas, Ryan, there's a couple awesome people. I mean, there's a lot of awesome people who are tuning in. So,
Awesome
um,
joining us.
yeah. So thank you. Yeah. So one of those days, people are just joining back for eh, those who are just joining back.
And
We were just
yeah,
having a discussion with Kat about her interior series of work and what home means. And I find this really fascinating because right now I'm actually doing a whole series of lives with people in Syria. So, with artists in Syria, particularly.
that's awesome.
Um, so it's really interesting hearing like what home means and what they're going through in terms of what they're saying in their work and like mental health and stuff like that. And especially compared with how they find that like place within the home. Now you're talking about doing like you've been working on some healing. Is that something that you'd like to extrapolate, or is that something that you like keep in the back and we don't have to touch on
No,
it?
talk about it. I think it's really, really important. It's just something that I and thank you for mentioning that. I'm really excited to hear about your work about Syria because I think that's such a crazy thing to explore. I mean, to live in a place that is constantly threatening your idea of home. I think it's really just a testament to the human spirit, you know, but it's so fascinating to me and I'm always so impressed by people who are able to remain kind and generous and have hope in humanity when crazy stuff like that happens in their own home. But yeah, for sure. And I think I'm really passionate about healing. I actually almost went to school for art therapy, which is something that I'm exploring still. It's on my bucket list. I'm just have a lot of things happening right now. But healing has been a part of my journey. And, you know, I don't want to, the only thing I don't talk about is like who, who I'm healing from. But that is irrelevant. Whatever you need to heal in your life, even if it's just relationship with yourself, I think art can be a really powerful tool. But I am particularly interested in discussing healing with people who are high achievers because I think a lot of times we bury ourselves with either projects, even if it's art, even if they're really great things, a lot of times it becomes like a mask for what's happening beneath. And for years, even as I started to experience success, like there was just so much anxiety, unhappiness, and heaviness. Like existence was hard. Like every day was really, really hard. And doing the healing work, doing NLP exercises, journaling, meditating, praying, being honest with yourself, and also just having someone you can trust to share these things with, I think that has really helped me because it's not just about success or recognition or it's about being able to go through your day with ease and fun and be able to like not have an anxiety attack every time you like step out the door or go to a social event, or even just be alone with your thoughts. Sometimes we're the most harmful thing to ourselves, right? So I've been doing a lot of healing work, um, just in general, and it's been really it's been really transformational. So letting go of addictions can be work, could be inability to rest. That was something I really struggled with. Inability to get away from my phone, inability to like stop painting. Like for me, it's been really hard over the years to like give myself a day off. And it literally made me crazy. Like I would cry. And I knew that wasn't healthy. So I finally just started having normal weekends, like watching TV, playing video games. Like if I want to sketch, I sketch, but only whatever I want to do, and that's been insane. I know it sounds really crazy, but it's a thing.
It's a thing. it's saying like, what is a weekend? How does it relate? How does it relate to when you have a big project that's like really there or exciting, or even a
Yeah,
night off? Like, what does
yeah,
that mean?
yeah. And I think like I don't know, for me when I left my day job because I was transitioning, I was like working and there's a time for hustle, right? Like if we have a goal in mind or if there's a deadline, like of course we're gonna work a lot more than usual. But I got used to about 3 years of working after work, working on the magazine, painting, and then working on my days off. So like that created a pattern that I couldn't kick after I was already self-employed. I thought I just had to forever work like that. And then I got really burned out and there was a lot of
Wow.
issues that result from burnout. But I'm here. I'm recovering.
I understand that so well myself when I was putting together a design conference. Um, it's burnout is difficult, and especially like balancing facilitating for others, as well as facilitating one's own practice and balancing that. And I feel like you've had a lot of practice in that, and I'd like to learn more about how you balance facilitating with for others, which is so important in the world. We need so much more of so what we have, and so much more, I feel. And we also need our own personal practices. How do you balance those?
For sure. It's really easy to sort of tip the scale where you start giving, 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 but it goes back to healing. So when we heal, naturally, I'm sure you're familiar, like masculine and feminine energy, like giving versus receiving. So we need both to function as healthy humans. And I've been in my masculine for years. I've been working with a coach who like lovingly pointed out, like, hey, you're always giving, you're always producing, creating opportunities. Like even art can be like giving, we're creating something. So like really learning to like sit back and receive and also receive support, receive love, receive rest. That's been really important to just be mindful of that because a lot of times we don't even think of that, like especially if you love creating opportunities. So it's definitely a balance for me. The only thing that really helps is turning off my phone and putting it away. And I got a puppy who actually barks at me, like he senses like I'm getting agitated, there's too much phone time, he like will bark at the phone. So that's been a trick, and I just put it away on the weekends now and just get my life back. It's really cool. So,
Wow.
but
And
it's a,
COVID has sure impacted that, right?
I'm sorry.
COVID has impacted that
Yeah,
idea,
I
yeah?
don't realize how much, like, I think for both my boyfriend and I, like, he works in an office usually. So I think he was like, hey, we're always on. Like, now we're always at home, we're always working. I'm like, that's how I always am. And he's like, this is not okay. And I'm like, oh my God, I live my life in this, like, crazy way. So for sure, COVID really highlighted that because there was nowhere to escape. So yeah, it's been really great to not be addicted to. But like it's a powerful tool, and I have to thank social media and the internet for everything it gave me. But I also realize like it only gives you so much in terms of opportunities. The rest you're like either scrolling or doing stuff on there that's not really creating results. We're not building just a social media following. We're actually creating something tangible. So.
Right. Like, what is tangibility, and what are the relationships that we build through that? I think that for me personally, I'm starting to understand that through my most recent work, is like because it's about the relationships that I've been building by working with others and collaborating. How have you found the work collaborating with others before this, and now, like now the new era of life?
That's a great question. I'm still exploring it, honestly. Like, it's very new, but I did realize, like, part of my healing journey was to also allow myself to not, like, I mean, this is hard to explain, but for me, like, I had this habit of, like, giving everything away all the time, just because of certain things that happened in the past. So for me, it was like being okay with collaborating, but then also having my own things, like being mindful of that. Not everything is a collaboration. Some things are just yours. Because I think if you're like, I'm a recovering people pleaser, like I always want to give everyone credit and celebrate everyone else. But there comes a time where that also leads to burnout. and like a little bit of resentment because like if you're always giving, then it's tricky. But I mean, I'm learning that it's you can have both, and it's really like I just launched a membership right when COVID happened, and that's been really cool because I feel like that's a structured like collaboration. I invite speakers to come and teach the Art Queens, and then I teach sometimes. So that feels really good to me, and that feels really manageable. So creating expectations, I think, is the best way to put it. But yeah, it's an interesting. It's always a learning journey, right?
It
We just
always is. It always is. It's an experiment, a learning journey, trying something new, right? That's and how are you relating that to Create Magazine? That
that a collaboration. That's a permanent collaboration because it's writers, it's people who submit, and we're so grateful, and the curators, and everyone who contributes, our designer. Like that is just one big melting pot of everyone's skills and ideas. I can't take credit. I can only take credit for like pulling the trigger and actually launching it all those years ago, but that is something that's a structured collaboration. But what's beautiful about it is just like it can take over your whole life if you wanted to, or it can just be even more of a collaboration where everyone contributes a little bit and it becomes this like big labor of love from everyone. So it's really, I met so many amazing people through Create, so super grateful for that.
because that's a big part of your life right now, right?
It's always been, well, not always, the past well, my first magazine was launched in 2013, so
That was Fresh Paint, right?
yeah, fresh paint. So
Mm-hmm.
since then, but I've been doing this kind of thing. There's a copy of one of the issues. Yeah.
Cool. Wow, look at that. Is there a page you want us to see?
This one, there's so many.
You can
Uh,
show us a few.
yeah, there's a few. This one is from our winter edition. I don't know, they're all. I'm gonna get sucked in. There.
Right?
Sorry.
You're fine. This is
There.
the beautiful thing. We're here on this live, seeing what happens.
Yeah, this is real life.
This is real life right here. We're in this together.
Christina, one of our writers, interviewed Kristen Farr, who also works for Juxtapose magazine, and she has amazing work. These geometric.
Could you guess a little bit closer?
Yeah.
Awesome. I love like being able to zoom in, see what's happening. That's cool.
Yeah, some fun geometric murals. But yeah, here it is. That's their winter issue.
Nice. Does it give you a little cool in this heat? Just
What?
looking at
It's
yeah,
a
just like feeling it be like this is the winter issue. Like,
fancy. This is my big gift to myself. Do you see that little air conditioner up there? That
oh
looks
yeah.
cool in here. But
That's amazing.
it was like 100 degrees in here, so my landlord was like, "We can set something up." So that was my gift to myself last year. It's
Wow.
the best thing I've ever done, and also it keeps the paintings from like warping and all that crazy stuff. So
That's awesome. I was thinking about just getting one of those. The first time I saw that type of air conditioner, I was at my friend's place in Rajasthan, hanging out, just like writing all day. And then I was like, oh, thank God for this AC unit. And it looked like that. I think that's the interesting thing about interiors and like these like places that we call home for at least periods of time. They have little objects that remind us. Is that something like then
the
you
air
talked about the textiles. Have you noticed like different objects in
yeah,
different places?
objects are really, I think like any kind of like ceramics. For me, I think it's patterns, like curtains are a big one, tablecloths, bedding. I think like anything that has like more organic shapes is interesting to me, but for sure, like I think man-made objects that are more unique, like I love pottery, and I even brought some back from Greece when I was traveling because they had like the traditional Greek vases and olive oil jars and all that stuff. So it's really cool. It just creates a. I think that's why I was so drawn to painting the Russian interior initially, because Americans had like all the same stuff from like Target and Walmart. So not everyone, but like the middle class, and so I was just like, oh, I'm so tired of looking at the same thing. And I think like just having those more unique things really inspired me. That's what I love about traveling too. can see like different designs in people's houses.
Hmm, that's beautiful. Would you like that to change about America? Like, would that be cool? Because I would like to see more of that in
Yeah,
America.
I think that's a big thing. And maybe COVID will help people with that because I think people realize they're just staring at some boring, like mass produced print. And it's really not that hard to buy a print from an artist that's a little more unique, you know? And I think being at home made people appreciate decor that wasn't so readily available. Because I think it's an expression of ourselves. Like, do we want to be mass, like, produce beings that look like every other person? Sometimes you want to fit in, but at some point, like, you just get tired of it. So I
Right.
don't, I definitely want that to change. But it's not just America. Like, it's any country that, you know, and it's not the people's fault either. The culture kind of conditions you to be that way because they brainwash you into thinking it's too expensive, it's unachievable, or it's too hard, or what's the point? You're going to move anyway. That was definitely one of my. I'm guilty of that. Like, oh, I'm going to move out of this apartment anyway, but it like psychologically affects you to be surrounded by art. And I don't want to look at my own art because that reminds me of working. So I always buy a little thing from my community when I can.
Oh, that's beautiful. So it's really a system change type of thing.
Yeah.
What sort of things, because you have a couple platforms that you can change this on,
Yeah.
what would you suggest for the rest of us with other platforms? Because everybody here who's on Instagram has a platform, for as big or small, as connected or not as you are to everybody around you. We all kind of have our own platforms now that we
Yeah.
speak from and to. How do you suggest that we go about making those changes both in our lives but also in the world around us?
That's a great question. I think just celebrating, like, even if, for example, you take a selfie or surround yourself by your work, just showing yourself in an environment that doesn't just have like an IKEA print or no, nothing wrong with IKEA. I love IKEA, but you know what I'm saying. Like like a picture of you or a video of you with a background of something unusual, like your artwork or someone else's artwork. I don't think it has to be a dramatic like preachy thing. I think it's just making it the new normal. Like, ooh, what's that? For example, I have this mug. I can't pronounce the guy's name, but he's on Instagram. I can share it with you. His
Oh
account.
yeah, definitely share a story. I'll share the story.
So I saw that my friend actually shared him with me, and it's not a cheap mug, but it's not super expensive. It was under $100, but it's so freaking dramatic. Like you can't not comment when you see it. And then like little things like Betsy's popsicles, I just keep them on my desk, and they make me happy. And then when I take a picture of like my work computer, people are like, "Oh my God, what's that mug or what's that sculpture?" And I think it's a conversation. It doesn't have to be like us preaching at people, but just being like, "Hey, this is how I live, but it's really fun. You should try it."
Interesting. So you think it's really a matter of integrating those objects and the decor around you and then showing you in that decor and sharing those different artists that you've surrounded yourself with and
Yeah,
experiences.
that's one way of doing it. And that we're also like being more conscious. I was just talking to one of my clients about it. Like she's really passionate about the environment, and she had to buy some item of clothing, and she's like, I never thought to like before just going to like Nordstrom.com or any store you shop at to think about like, hey, is there a small sustainable business brand that I can buy this sweater from? Like just stopping and thinking before automatically going to where our mind will take us. Because I'm guilty of it too. I'll be like, oh yeah, like I need workout clothes, whatever. Gymshark, I don't know. But like you don't think about it, but you're like, hey, how can I support something that I care about and buy what I need? Even if it's like $20 more than what I usually spend, it's worth it because it makes you feel good. You're supporting what you believe in and supporting that business too. But it can be selfish. It could just be us like reinforcing what we want to see in the world. So
Mm-hmm.
I think there's so many ways of doing it. I think just slowly integrating. Like even for example, this is a really silly example, but like a pen jar, instead of ordering like an Amazon, this is even from Amazon, but Adam JK, the artist on Instagram, this is like a feelings jar that he had. And I know he has a huge following, but it's still from like an independent artist. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna get a funny jar instead of just
Cool.
ordering metal pencil holders. Just little things. I think it will make a big difference in the end for our society.
That's beautiful. Just like ordering little things from those around us, the small designers, the smaller, I mean, even like people who are like but bigger, but whatever that means. Like it's all a very relative thing with
Yeah,
the social
I mean
media.
they're bigger in their community, but like in the world, they're not. They're not Walmart. So
Right. Right. They're not like they don't have the 10 box stores. They're like trying to make it. They're trying to feed their families, trying to uh buy other things from their friends, like, and the people that they know, trying to support their own communities. I think that's so important, is how we discuss this as supporting communities within the art world, but also how that becomes so much more than the art world onto itself.
yeah, I love that.
And what is that to, do you feel like Create Magazine in like that relationship to creating our own interior spaces, creating those as like looking up to versus like what we could have versus like where do you think that lens in that spectrum of what's possible? And how do you think Create Magazine is part of that vision for you?
So for me, initially it started, I was not thinking that big at all. I was, I was really looking for opportunities and I couldn't find them. So I just wanted to create an opportunity. But yeah, it's grown so much that now it is kind of part of the conversation. Like my partner Alicia and I launched the gallery a year ago, and now she runs it beautifully, PXP. So, you know, creating opportunities for artists to sell more affordable works, that's part of that conversation. But also, like, now that the platform has grown, when we share stuff, it's not nothing anymore. Like people do, like collectors do contact some artists, not everyone, but it's getting more and more often. So it's not like there's one specific thing you can do to change things. It's just like consistency and showing up and then keeping your vision in mind. But I think celebrating each other, because like what I find most beautiful is not when some rich lady reaches out, but when like we buy each other's work, when we buy the magazine, like someone buys my magazine, they're also an artist, or their friend is in it. Like it just becomes a communal thing, and I think that's the best part.
So, how do you think for other artists they can better celebrate each other? Because that sounds like a big aspect for you. It's because I agree. It's like, how is it an opportunity for us and how is it an opportunity for each other where it grows together? None of us are, we're not Walmart. We're not a big box store. We're artists trying to make it happen, and we're trying to make it happen, and we each have our own dreams and goals, and how can we be better supportive of each other as artists, I guess.
Well, I think, like you said, everyone does have a platform, so it's not nothing when someone shares, for example, your painting on their Instagram stories or even doing lives like this. That's super nice and helpful because your audience might connect with some of my work and vice versa. And then, yeah, like just sharing each other's work. If you do have other platforms like podcasts, anything, that is all really impactful. People don't realize it. And like, for example, in our Art Queens community, I see artists buying each other's work, like they're not even trading, they're just buying each other's work, and I think that's really inspiring. I honestly just think even just celebrating, like eliminating, I think our generation is doing a good job eliminating this idea that artists are competing with each other, because we know how different all our work is and how it's more about how we fit into the world and how we can be a conversation within society than like competing, because our market is so broad, right? So I think just supporting each other and sometimes just saying like, hey, I know it's rough. It can get really rough sometimes, but it's okay.
Right. And then also it's like that balance of like it's rough, and then how to create an opportunity together. I think that's like making the opportunity from nothing. You seem to have built a lot of skills in making those opportunities from nothing.
Yeah. So here's another tip too. For example, my studio neighbor Phyllis and I, we wanted to do an art fair, and we didn't really have the funds to do a whole booth ourselves. So we actually pitched to the fair. We emailed them and said, hey, can we share a booth? Is that okay? And they were like, sure. So we ended up like splitting the booth and trying to like coordinate our paintings so that they look good together. But that was really cool. So yeah, like it doesn't even have to be anything extraordinary. You could just support each other on your journey, like share a booth or, you know.
Share something cool. You know, it's interesting. I just want to bring up what I'm currently working on. My first solo painting show is opening up on Saturday. So thank
That's
you.
awesome.
Thank you. I've opened up photography shows before. My background's in a lot of photography and video, but now it's all of a sudden like painting and multimedia. So I'm opening that up on Saturday, and I'm working with a gourmet chef and musicians and the gallery and then like all of these other organizations. And it's really interesting, you know, how that kind of grows and builds and giving opportunities for like the whole like chef and that team, and then the musicians and their teams, and I think that's really beautiful, is the ways in which we can look beyond just like the opportunities for what we thought it was originally, but then including people from the outside in as like, oh, this could actually be an opportunity. You're saying like there's writers and designers involved in the magazine, and it
Yeah.
becomes opportunities for all of that. How did you go about really learning that with your first magazine, Fresh Paint?
First of all, congratulations on your show. I think it's brilliant that you're including all these different parts of the world in it, like gourmet chef. That's freaking awesome. I
Thank
learned
you.
the hard way. I mean, I learned it that one, I couldn't do it on my own. I used to do like everything on my own, and that was fine. You have to start somewhere, but one, it was too much work, and then two, it was like not as gratifying. You have people to celebrate with, and everyone feels like super satisfied with the progress. Um, but you know, it was like a lot of collaboration, a lot of experimentation with either art fairs, galleries, or other stores. So you just get to see what works. That was really my experiment, just throwing things against the wall and seeing what's. That's the honest answer. Nothing really profound there. Just have
But
to
I
try.
think that is profound onto itself, is throwing things up against the wall and seeing what sticks, and having the courage to do so when you don't know that it will work.
Yeah, you don't know if it will work, and sometimes it doesn't. I had a few really crazy situations where like I put everything on the line and like almost didn't make it. So like you just have to be okay with that. You have to be okay. You know, what's that quote? Like the price of admission is your willingness to fail. Like that sums it up. Definitely very. I mean, failed many times financially, like logistically. But it's just a matter of like, is it worth it for you to keep doing it? If not, and ironically, I think it is a collaboration, but what it came down to, and this is my life lesson so far, it's not seeking approval of bigger platforms, bigger curators, bigger artists, not seeking like the validation that they bring, but knowing that you also have enough to bring to the table and they can be a part of that conversation at that table. They also have their own table, you have your own table. It's not like this, you know, I have to climb up to their level. It's a different environment altogether. So I had to learn that because I thought, oh, if I only get this curator, oh, if I only have this store, but it never changed anything so dramatically as I expected it. It's all about how we show up in the world. So that was my biggest lesson so far.
Interesting. So just by building your own table,
Mm-hmm.
you were able to invite them into the table. Be
Yeah.
like, would you like to come to this table with me?
Yes. Not like, oh, help me out. I'm poor and broken. Like that's not the energy you want to bring to any project. You want to like know your worth and celebrate your unique contributions. And of course, celebrate anyone else who's like quote unquote higher level than you or on a different place in their journey. But you know, they will not change things for you as much as you can change things for yourself for sure.
That's so beautiful. That's a hard one lesson.
Oof. I learned that lesson many times. And, you know, even like with my own work, you know, thinking like, oh, if only you get the gallery, only if you get this award, or only if you get this money, like, nope. It all comes from within. And the minute you are like, it's just waking up and like being excited to be alive and be proud of what you're doing, that's when things start to shift. And ironically, then you attract the people you're after without any any hard work or desperation. But it's fun.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. And that's really interesting as it relates to we were
Sorry,
talking.
there's like a drilling noise. It's been a day. Right here. Okay.
That's the beautiful thing about these lives. You never know what's going to happen.
There's really someone drilling outside of the. We can look at this.
I think that's the thing, that we know that it's like real, that we know that it's not just like put on. This is us just hanging out and sharing, what's really happening in our lives and our life journeys, and little pieces. I think for me that's the most important thing, is learning from those lessons and being able to share those lessons with the world. Is like, how did we get to that place? How did we get to that place through the art? I find really interesting, and how is that reflected in the art? And that's something that I'm exploring with this series of Syrian artists. So highly suggest you check that out. And if you have any ideas, I'm happy to include you in any way.
Yeah, please email me some of
Yeah.
the.
Yeah, I'd love to include you some way. So what do you think is the future of galleries?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'm not sure. I feel like galleries, like the way I see it and the way the conversations I've been having, I feel like if we all, not just galleries, but the artists in general, any creatives, like we have to stop separating ourselves. Like I did this meditation the other day and I felt like there was like a brick wall with the art world because we're not integrating ourselves into society as other industries do. Like business and like fashion are intertwined. You see people collaborating all the time. But with the art world, I feel like it's like only the elite collaborate. You know, the big banks collaborate with the big art fairs. But like in terms of like everyday life, it's pretty rare, aside from like maybe a local coffee shop showing a local artist. So I think just being more of a conversation between industries, maybe the galleries can help facilitate that. But I think ultimately we all have to take responsibility for our own journeys. And I think the artists need to kind of plug themselves into society a little bit more to, one, elevate themselves and their work and make themselves more visible, and two, educate, because people just don't know. We don't have a big art education in our schools. We don't know anything. People don't know. It's not their fault that they don't know anything about art. They're literally like blocked off from that learning from the beginning. So we just have to talk to each other.
Well, that was really interesting. You brought that up in your talk when you were talking about Haha magazine in Philadelphia. Yeah. And that relationship with like learning about art and what that could be. And I find that really fascinating, is like, what is art education and how does that relate to us learning and integrating? So besides showing, I guess, we're also talking about art education as an aspect to this whole thing.
Absolutely. One of my clients, Victoria, she just launched a platform called Visionary Art Collective, and her mission, because she's an art teacher, her mission is to create lesson plans that integrate more diverse artists, because everyone's taught Van Gogh and Monet, and then there's no African American artists, there's no like any international representation when it comes to kids learning. So she's actually, I'm so proud of her, but I was like, yeah, I don't remember learning about any female artists, for example, growing up. So it's a whole thing. It just needs a whole overhaul in general. But yeah, it's society in general. But that's okay. We can be part of the change. It's nothing that can't be undone.
No, we can, like, just more art education in general. We can then start learning about more. I feel like that's so important, is as we have more build that space and time for that, as people start to learn more. I'm not sure if that's happening in the US, but I think it could.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
I think in general, like I said, I think art has just been so separated from life, even though like most of history is documented through art, but it's just like it's a crazy thing. But we can't take on the world. We can only do a little bit in our own life. But it's okay. I think it's change is slowly happening. As long as we keep talking and bringing it up and doing the work, it will happen.
Showing it as an example.
Yeah, being
And
the
hmm?
I said being the example.
Yes, being the example. How do you feel like that art integrates into the healing process, or can, or could, or would, or should?
It definitely does. I think when it comes to healing though, we can't put any boundaries on what that means. It could be through our like it doesn't have to be separate from what we're doing because subconsciously I think art is healing in general. um, Allowing yourself, like for me, it's really healing. Like I'm aware of how healing it is right now to do these illustrations, even though they're doing nothing for my career as of yet, and I don't expect them to. Like having projects that are just expression, not for any ego-driven reason. There's nothing wrong with ego-driven reasons, but I think like just having stuff for play and for fun and like really bringing out your inner child is really important. It could be something really elaborate too. It doesn't have to be like a crazy experiment, but it could just, as long as it's for you and as long as you're aware that you don't have to show it if you don't want to, and if you do, it's yours, you know. So I think that's the most healing thing is the freedom, because I think I'm sure you feel the same way. Like once you start doing something for a goal or professionally, it takes away from some of the magic, and that's not always a bad thing, but it does take away a little bit of the freedom because you committed to something specific. So giving yourself the freedom back, that's where the healing will happen.
The freedom. I feel like that's so important. Is how do we discuss that within art? Is what does freedom mean versus, oh, I'm doing this, and then there's like a project oriented deadline,
Yeah.
like the project orientation versus like I'm just going to do this and see what happens.
Yeah. It's important to have both. Obviously, we need to live and feed ourselves, but I think just carving out even 30 minutes a day for play is really important.
Do you plan to do that past this COVID time?
Of course, yeah. I mean, it's been like I said because I normally like either work here or from home, so I always I start my day usually with like either journaling or writing or sketching. So I definitely it's really important for me to do that before the day gets me takes over.
Before you start opening up all the social media and getting all the messages and
For sure.
emails, I'm sure are crazy, right? Let's see. I had a few more questions. Um, let's see. So we were talking about your Fresh Paint magazine. What big lessons did you learn that helped you remake this new magazine? That if there were a magazine creator out there, because there can never be enough art out there in the world, um, what could they learn? What would you like to share from like that lesson to this lesson, and now that you're at this point, like moving forward?
There were definitely so many lessons. I'm gonna move back to my chair so my
Oh
legs don't.
yeah.
I think the drilling has ended. So the one lesson for sure is that you don't have to start like yes of course there's a learning curve, but you don't have to start from like the beginning crawling like a worm on the earth. Like you already have so much experience, whether no matter what level you're at. So literally come off right away as an expert, as a professional, and people will treat you as such because like attracts like, and you will attract the people you want to work with if you have self-respect and value the time that you're putting into it. So immediately establishes as a high-level magazine because I did not do that from the beginning. I did that with Create, but just because I already had the confidence. Be careful about partnerships. They can be really powerful, but they can also have so much conflicting goals and objectives from each person and what they want to get out of it. So it gives you a lot of freedom to fully own your own project. You can collaborate, but if you want this to be your baby, like obviously don't be like me and don't give half of it away because that was a hard lesson to learn, really painful lesson. And then what other lessons have I learned? Don't I mean this was something that I already knew and I did do this. Don't grow too fast, be as lean as possible. until you have like tested financial systems and income systems. Literally, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. Only invest into as much inventory as you can afford at the time based on like pre-sales or whatever your budget is, or ads, however you choose to design your business plan. Don't like go in over your head with investing too much money. um, Grow organically. Don't invest like into fake account stuff. We definitely grew organically a lot, but there was one time I paid for like a shout out service and it ended up being really fake. And then you just like watch people fall off your account over time, and that was traumatizing. So don't do that. Or if you do pay for a shout out, make sure it's from a credible place, because there are credible like influencers that have your audience. As long as you have the same audience, you're fine. Um, what else? What else? What else? I think that's pretty much, it's pretty good. I mean, collaboration is really fun, like inviting other people to contribute. You can do things very cheaply in the beginning. Like there's templates you can buy to create your magazine. The Creative Market is a great resource. I did everything for a few years, then I ended up working with a designer. My ex-partner was a designer, and then I hired my designer Shelby. So design is really important for me personally. um, that's pretty much it. There's a lot to learn, but as possible, it's a very time consuming but rewarding thing to have a magazine for sure.
I'm sure it's created opportunities for you and those around you and those who've been in it and who've been a part of it. And I feel like from a lot of what you're saying, it's really about creating opportunities for those around you. And that's
Yeah,
like the opportunities that you never saw existed.
exactly. And that's so funny because my designer, for example, she has two other magazines, and before she started them, she asked, like, hey, is it okay if I start a magazine? Because she knew my story with my old partner. And I was like, duh, of course, like you said, there's never going to be enough opportunities for all the artists out there. So if everyone on here wants to start their own magazine, I fully encourage and support you. Because everyone loves to get published and featured, but there's only a certain amount of pages that this is actually quite big. Most magazines aren't even this big. So yeah, there is so much. And like, even if it's a blog, it doesn't have to be a print thing. If I were to do it right now, I'll probably just start with an online platform because it's so much more cost effective. Yeah, there's just, artists need to be featured. Artists need to be shown. So
They do. They do. I think that's the biggest thing in any of it. Artists need to be shown on your desk. They need to be shown on your walls. They need to be shown in print, on the bookshelf, on the coffee table,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And your work needs to be shown and talked about too. I think
yeah,
that's the difficult thing about being, I think, a facilitator and also having one's own practice and balancing that.
hmm
Would
yeah. It is. But I honestly found, like, I was worried. That was a fear of mine, and for some reason, I always thought like one canceled out the other. But over the years, I found the opposite is true. Like, the more it's karma, like the more opportunities you provide for others, the more opportunities find you. It just always, I don't know why, it just always was like that. Like, the more people I publish, the more people reach out to me. It's just like the law of the universe. I think as long as we have boundaries, obviously you don't want to spend all your time serving and never having support for your own work, but it's just, you're broadening your community when you do that.
Right. So you'd suggest for people out there that they find ways to broaden their own community. That's
Yeah,
really what it is, and help out each other.
exactly. You don't have to start a whole business for it, but yeah, just share someone's work in your story. That's sometimes enough to start some friendly online relationships. Every little bit helps.
Right. And then there's relationships that can be built between magazines too,
Yeah,
right?
for
How
sure.
have you, because you talked about, that there's things that went not so good. What went well with that aspect of like creating those collaborations?
Um, well, for sure, like, we worked with so many art fairs, Art Miami fairs we worked with for the past 3 years. And I met Jessica Rivas. She's listening. I don't think she is, but she's awesome. And she actually connected me with our current curator, Larry. So that was something really cool. So it's just like this, you know, it's domino effect. You meet people and then you meet more people. If you kind of like vibe with them, they end up sending people your way, or it's just like there's no explanation. It's just you're opening yourself up to opportunities. So like collaborating with fairs, it's a lot of work to like travel, and one of my biggest nightmares, like making sure the shipments arrive on time, all that stuff. It was definitely a lot of work, and I know we're probably not going to do it this year because of COVID, so it's kind of nice to have a break, but it was always worth it. In a way, it always came back to us in some way, shape, or form. But once again, not having expectations and not thinking that everything is going to have a strong return on investment, because you just don't know. You don't know. So.
Right. Not sure like what's going to happen from that, but investing in what you care about.
Exactly. And trusting your intuition. Sometimes it doesn't make logical or financial sense, but you're like, I feel like I really have to do this, you know? So trusting that little voice and following it, sometimes it ends up like down the road making sense. Like, oh my God, I'm so glad I did that.
That's so awesome. I know you're talking about that between like Create Magazine and Haha Magazine, uh, as
Yeah.
like those two entities, I guess, individuals and entities. You were talking about that with like the drinks um, at the Art Basel, and like having the drinks and like that partnership that you created with that group, and building that. How do you think that that could be done as an individual artist? You mentioned like shout outs, you mentioned putting it on your desk, you mentioned hanging up the different things in your room, like maybe I know we have some musicians on here who are following me, so maybe it's putting up some paintings in the
Yeah.
back of while you're playing music. I'm just trying to like open this up for the brainstorming of what else can be done, and really pushing that, like, because you've had so many different experiences with those collaborations and
Yeah.
those little bits that can be shared. um it then becomes the basis of a community, and I guess
Hmm.
that's the thing that I'm looking at, is like, how does that art community really formulate asynchronously as well as synchronously? Where are those parts, and where's that, um, where are those aspects in the digital divide between us and the other? How do, um, oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Ryan, Ryan's on here. He's an amazing musician. So yeah,
Thanks.
you should definitely follow. If you're not following, go follow, because that's the good thing to do.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that's a great question. So I think for me personally, I can't speak for everyone. I know a lot of other people with online presences share this view, like sharing your story, sometimes being a little more vulnerable, like sharing pivotal moments or pivotal stories in your life that made you either do the certain work that you're doing now, or create the certain paintings, or write a certain song. That will create a deeper connection with you to your audience. It will be one individual audience member at a time, but you're going to find that there's more than one person that connects or relates to your life experience, you know, whether it's another immigrant, for example. Like some of my clients are also immigrants, and because we understand, we know what it's like to start from scratch and start over. So whatever it is that defines your pivotal life moment, don't be afraid to bring it up once in a while, because that will draw people to you. Because community building is not like we like art. Yeah, there's like all these people like art, but like, what is it about you, and why are you doing the type of art that you're making? You know, maybe it's something to do with Syria and why you care about it so much, you know, and bringing up specific examples of why you do what you do is what, you know, I don't know. Sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we don't know why we follow certain people, but there's always something, whether it's their style, whether it's their story, or their confidence, or like how they overcame something. And sometimes we want to overcome something that they already overcame, so we're like vicariously hanging on to hope from them. That's really important. So there's different reasons for why communities are strong, and I think it comes down to being specific, not being worried about being disliked by someone, like knowing that there is someone that does connect with you and admire you, or just feels like they vibe with you. I actually literally had someone message me and tell me that they're like, I don't know why, I just feel like you're supposed to be my friend. And I'm like, okay, but I was like, that can be really, but then over time I'm like, yeah, that totally makes sense. We should just be friends. Like it could be as simple as that. You know, and there was no rhyme or reason for that message. She was like, you know, another artist, and our work had nothing to do with each other, but it's cool.
Right.
So,
I found it really interesting, just as like people have followed me, is that they become connected. Like Ryan and Henrietta are both on here, and like they've got to know each other even because they've both been on my. Well, Henrietta hasn't been on live stream with me, but she's always commenting. While like Ryan, and I think Henrietta also drew you while we were on here. She likes to draw people who are like who I'm live streaming with. She put on her alarm to make it here today from England. So she's like, I'm gonna put on my alarm and be here. So
That's so,
thank you.
thank
What time is it? I think we might be. Yes, we've like gone way over an hour.
Hi, this was awesome. Thank you for being patient with my traffic and with the drilling and all
Thank you for being patient with my overheating phone and like who knows and like figuring this out. I'm so happy that like we've made this together and being able to create this little bit, and I've learned so much. uh Thank you, and I just I hope I can we can do this again when you're able to release more about your new work.
the
I'd love to like learn more about this fairy tale, because this is super exciting. The fairy tale with the gold edges, or seeing what happens with illustrations. I'm just super into that, into the idea at the next level, like what's going to happen.
Thank you. I'm excited too. I had no idea what was going to happen, but we shall see.
We shall see. I may have some ideas for you. I'll DM you
Yeah,
about that.
we'll stay in touch for sure. And thank you so much to everyone who joined. I hope it was helpful. And yeah, it was a pleasure. And I hope everyone has an amazing day and everything goes right from here on. No more drilling or traffic or overheating phones.
Thank you so much. Till the next time. I'll
Bye.
be back on here tomorrow with Trinity at 3 p.m. Eastern and 12 p.m. PST. I'll see you then.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.